So today I'm going to give you my formula in the 3-step principles in how to do a successful body recomp that will get you results very, very similar to this. 3 principles I live by whenever I'm doing a full body recomp that you can apply into your life. I think you're going to like it because the thesis may be slightly different to the usual suffering you hear online in order to get lean and shredded. Now, of course, you will absolutely need to suffer at some point. Do not get that wrong, but it does not have to be all of the time. So, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Tom Sergi. I run the Gorilla Platoon, where we get results like this each and every week, which is nice. The topic for today, as you know, is 3 principles for a successful body recomp. Nearly didn't get my words out there, you motherfucker. Right. So, moving straight in and wasting no time. Principle number 1. Keep food as high as possible for as long as humanly possible. This is mission critical. Do not spunk your load early. Do not go really low calorie, really fucking early. You know why? Because you've got nowhere to go with it from there. And it's going to be real miserable. Food drives performance in the gym. Performance in the gym builds muscle tissue with body recomping. We're not just getting smaller. We're doing a body recomp. The goal is to build tissue at the same time as pulling off body fat. This was 16 weeks. Under no circumstances can you convince me this guy did not build any muscle in that 16 weeks. He absolutely did, and we got him leaner because of this main principle. Now let's put this into some numbers for you. Let me dip out of presentation mode and come on to the calculator. So, right, let's say you start out. We'll use some nice whole numbers. Let's start out with, let's say you're 90 kg and you're 30% body fat, all right? I mean, it's kind of less of a recomp when you are all the way at 30%, but still, you should be able to build muscle. This should take around, so you're 90 kg, 30% body fat. We need to get you down to 8 to 10% visible clean cut abs. You need to drop about 20 kilos, roughly. You can expect 1% of body fat to be around 0.8 of a kilogram. Let's use easy numbers. 1% is basically 1 kilogram that needs to come off. Tiny bit less, but pretty much the same. So, at this point here, your RMR is 1730. I guarantee some motherfucker that is 30% body fat will think, let's just put it straight to 1800 calories and we'll go from there. You don't need to do that just yet. And this is why you don't need to do that just yet. Because for the longest of time, if you've got yourself to anywhere from above 20 and in between 20 and 30 and beyond 30% body fat, you've done some form of abuse to your body, obviously. Like, you've eaten some form of garbage consistently enough while not moving enough to burn it off. That's what you've done consistently. So, for the longest of time, you've abused your system in the way it will process food, use fuel, or not use it in this case. So what we can do now is this is why you really don't want to go low calorie, is because you just don't need it. It's the same as if you went new to the gym and you were like, I'm going to go 6 days a week, push-pull legs times 2. You just don't need that amount of stimulus. Just like if you're that fucking fat and you've eaten that much calories in the past, you don't need to go so low to begin with. You've got room here to play with. So let's say, for example, let's put some numbers on this. You do the average level of activity, your maintenances are pretty much 2.7. Now at this point, what we can do is, we don't even need to go this low. We could stick you on a half a percent drop gain per week, but because we've put you on less than maintenance and less than you have been eating, you will still drop. But you will still drop whilst eating an okay amount of food. 2,200 calories for someone that's 30%, that's an okay amount of food, because remember, lean tissue is what really requires the fuel and the food, right? Which is only 63 kilos. So at this point, we can now expect you're going to eat this much amount of food and you're still going to drop. And you should drop for the longest of time, to be fair, even on that. And what that's going to do is allow us to cycle food through your body consistently. Where people have done either one of two things. They've either eaten like low amounts of food for too long, and they've just taken their body into a space where the metabolism is just fucked, and they just don't want to. It just doesn't want to release body fat because you put it in a state of fucking survival for as long as you can remember. Or they've done the opposite. They've eaten a load of garbage and junk, which is kind of empty calories, doesn't contain actual nutrients, but you are still eating energy as such, and it's going on the body fat. So what we do here is we give you real food at an okayish amount. We cycle that through you, almost like we filled your diesel car full of fuel, and you're going to send it down the motorway. The equivalent of sending your car down the motorway is you training in the gym consistently. Eat fuel, burn fuel, eat fuel, burn fuel, eat fuel, burn fuel, and keep repeating like that. And then what will happen is, you'll be able to develop tissue, which was the whole goal, recomp, build muscle, but then also we'll get your metabolism in a responsive space where we can then pull down the body fat at the same time. So now when we need to pull into this, the body's going to respond a lot more efficiently. But I would say, remember, keep food as high as you can for as long as you can. So instead of attacking at this, we've got other options. If you're heavy as fuck, go and do steps. And I would even say, I actually would prefer if you did more steps in the beginning. You know why? They're easier for you to do, they come at a lower cost of fatigue, and they're very good for mental clarity. The only downside is they come at a higher cost of time. So you've got two options. You've got formal cardio. This is where you're going to do something that's non-impact. And again, because we don't accumulate fatigue, we want to be able to do it daily. So looking inside your gym, you've got the cross trainer, which you see fucking pregnant women using. You've got the incline treadmill, or you've got like a bike or something. Bike being the last one. You'll do something where you stood up, having to hold your weight. Do that for 20 minutes daily, non-impact. And then progressively increase the minutes as the scale weight starts to plateau out. So scale weight starts to plateau out, boom, 20 minutes daily. Oh, it starts to drop again, perfect, keep going, keep eating 2,200 calories, and then, it starts to dip out. Right, let's go to 30 minutes. But it'll get to a point where you're doing 40, and you're like, it will probably serve me to just take away some food at this point. And then the body will respond, and you're about to take away some food. And over time, of course, if you need to pull off 20 kilo, you're going to be in a case of lowering food, increasing output, and it'll slowly go like this. But what you don't want to do is start down here and then have to just send this up here, because it's good. To be honest, you're not going to stick to it. Like even if you did it, you won't stick to it, because after a period of time, the results will slow down anyway. What's that going to do for your motivation? It's going to put it straight in the bin, and it's fucking tough. People didn't get to 30% body fat by accident. People that got to 30% body fat abused their bodies because something inside their brain said it was okay to do so. Now you're telling it to do the polar opposite. It's just not... your brain will fight you at every fucking angle. And it's so hard to... Without someone in your corner, without me going, listen, motherfucker, have you done this? Show me you have done this. And you do it. It's so hard to fight against your own brain. So, you wouldn't even be able to mentally sustain it for long enough to get the result anyway. So you may as well take this approach if you want to get the result. Now, I'm just going to give another example, because not all of you are 30% body fat. Let's say you're 20% and 90 kg, lean mass of 72. Same amount of activity. This time your maintenance is at 3K. Even if we put you in a drop here of 2.4 at 2.5, you'll see beautiful drops at this, to be fair. You can either, when you're 20%, let's go back to this. Let's say you're new to this, you are 90 kg, because you're just a big boy, and you're 20% body fat, which is pretty standard, right? But your training experience is okay, you've done a bit, but not that much, and not so consistent, and not tracked and recording anything. What I would actually do is just sit just below maintenance, because again, for the same reasons explained earlier, if you've not dieted properly, eating whole foods just below maintenance and trained, there's a lot of fruits in this. How I get a lot of results is, honestly, in the beginning, I'll just sit boys, this one especially, I'll sit boys just below maintenance, because it gives them fucking immense amount of fuel to drive performance in the gym, but they will slowly get leaner across the course of the first 6 weeks, and it will also get them primed and ready to then, when I start pulling from that food, they'll respond quite nicely to it. And I've got a big window to play from as well, remember? So this is why I can't stress enough, you want to keep food as high as you can for as long as you can. And the bottom line up front, why? Because food will drive performance in the gym. Performance in the gym will build tissue or retain tissue. And that is the main focus in this. Then dropping off the body fat. Next thing we want to do is manage fatigue with deloads and refeeds. Now, why I say this is, if you were going through the dieting phase and we just continue to burn the candle at both ends, you're going to get to a point where fatigue is just high as fuck. What that also will do is, if we don't implement deloads, your body will just accumulate just a shit ton of inflammation. And if you ever have a look at someone that's dieting down and they're really fatigued and inflammation is high, they get this like watery look across the midsection. So they try and push even harder, but it doesn't solve the issue. So then it really dips in motivation, and then at that point they'll give up at around 13%, which is a shame, because yeah, that 13% is okay, like, but they had the potential to get in between 8 and 10. So if you put a deload week in, and what that would look and feel like is, let's say you're on a 12-week transformation, you're 20% going to 10%. As you hit around week 10, you could look to implement a deload, and what that's going to do is it's going to wash off a lot of the fatigue, and the way you're going to implement that is run your normal training split. Keep intensity exactly where it is, but drop off a set across every exercise. I program sometimes 3 sets. If it's a higher and an isolation exercise, you're going to drop to 2. And if it's a 2-set exercise, you're just going to drop to 1. So I do a top set and a back off set for a lot of them. On some of them, I do 2 back off sets. So you may only end up doing 1 top set, and that's it. Intensity needs to be there because you want to give the muscle a reason to stay on your bones, but you don't need to do as much volume. It's the volume which is accumulating a shit ton of fatigue, not really the intensity. So the worst thing you could do is drop the intensity and keep the volume, because at this point you're just spinning and burning through glycogen and fuel at this point without getting to the point of where you need to hold on to the tissue. If I was to draw the analogy, and honestly, this is why most people, as a side note, don't build that much muscle. If the threshold to build muscle is here, a lot of people train really hard in this window here. Really hard, so much volume, so much fucking effort and intensity, so much fuel is burned in and around this space. But the bar was here. If they just concentrated, this is their start point. This is where they are. If they just concentrated that effort to break through here, they would build new tissue, or they would hold on to tissue a lot more effectively than what they're doing here. I'm not saying volume is bad. I'm in a bulking season. Volume is very good, but I'm eating the fuel to do it. I'm sleeping the fucking sleep to do it. So I can take on more volume, no problem. When you're dieting down, you can't, because everything is being restricted to pull off body fat. So it's not efficient to just do a shit ton of volume and not to manage that fatigue. The body is like, it gets fatigued. Imagine you owned a horse and you just fucking made it march every single day, made you take it up mountains, you were jumping fences with it and stuff for cool fucking reels on Instagram. Like, it's going to get fatigued, right? If you never give it a day off, is it still going to be able to perform the same in fucking week 10 as it was in week 1? Of course not, right? Obviously it's going to have got fitter, it's the same as a human, but it's not going to be able to perform the same. Your body's the same. And this is the thing. If you've never really ran a deload, I'll tell you why you've never ran a deload. Because you're not training fucking hard enough. That's why. Do you know how I know this? Because looking back at my own training, I was the same. I never really needed a deload because I always trained here. And because you always train here, you never do anything that you'd never really done before, or nothing that you could put your hands on to show to break through that barrier. If you train like a fucking dog over the course of that time frame, you'll know you need a deload. And by the way, when you do that deload, you'll be glad to be out the gym for the week. That's how you know you need a deload. So that's managing fatigue with deloads. So we've covered that. The next thing I'd say is the refeeds. Why do we want to do refeeds? Well, the first thing I'll say is for a mental and a psychological benefit. You will diet down. I get this all the time. You will diet down over the course of 10 weeks and you will come to me and you'll say, I feel skinny. What you mean is, what you mean to say is, not that I know exactly what you mean, but why you feel that, it's not that you're skinny, it's that the muscle is flat. The muscle has, all the glycogen has pretty much been emptied out of the muscle. So if we took let's draw it like this. This is the skin, and this is the muscle when the muscle is full, and it bulges against the skin, and you feel fucking whoosh. But this is when the muscle is flat. So if we draw the skin, and then we draw the muscle, and it's like that. And this here can denote water and glycogen. Let's fucking get this drawn in here. Yeah, so as we can see, full. Then this here denotes when it's flat. And this here is the excess. This is... I'm not going to press that. That's a rubber. So this is why you feel skinny because the muscle is not protruding and pushing against the skin. So you feel like you've lost muscle. It's not that you've lost muscle. If I was to give you a high carb day and a refeed day, you will fill back out. The muscle will push against the skin because your glycogen stores are full. And at that point, by the way, you go from 0 to hero because you go from lean because you got leaner, but you feel skinny, and then I fill you full of carbs, you're then full and lean. You're like, dieting's the best thing since fucking sliced bread. Let me get a fucking Instagram story up because the fucking chick dem sugar are going to be all over me now. So this is why, for psychological reasons, this is why we implement a refeed. But for actual reasons, we do it because where we've dragged you flat for long enough, performance could start to dip off, energy is going to start to dip off, agitation is going to be increased, and overall, like, I'm sat doing this video for you now, I'll be moving my feet and stuff like that. That will all stop. Like even going to pick up the remote from over the other across the room will just be that much of an effort that you sack it and don't bother changing the channel. That's what it gets like. When we give you a refeed, it solves a lot of that. You've got full glycogen stores. You can train like a demon again. You just move more so it's easier to drop off the body fat. Mood is higher as well. Oh, and at this point, what you can do is you can trial it a few days. So you're going to go 10 weeks deep, drag flat, fill you back up with carbs. Just as a quick one, you are going to do scale weight. So whatever your weight is in kgs. No, I don't need the dictionary, motherfucker. In kgs, times, and the number is anywhere between 8 to 12. And that is going to give you your gram of carbohydrate intake. As a rule of thumb, when you do this for the first time, I don't go times 8, I go times 7, because I like to be conservative. So I go scale weight times 7 equals, that's the amount of grams you're going to eat for carbohydrates. What you're going to do, because there's 4 calories in a gram of protein and 4 calories in a gram of carbs, you're going to half your protein intake and then insert the total amount of carbs in there. For most of you, it's going to be anywhere between like 450 to 600, as like that'll pretty much cover all weights that most people watching here are going to be doing. So that's how you do that. And that will last you about 10 days. Maybe 2 weeks, and that will start to flatten out again, and then you could do the same again. Fill yourself up, drag yourself flat. Fill yourself up, drag yourself flat. So we've got 2 methods here. We manage fatigue through deloads, so we can come back fighting the week after and train harder, and we also fill you back up through refeeds. We can see the thesis here. We're always looking to support training stimulus to grow tissue, and we're going to do this through being tactful with food from the off. And then also we've got methods to keep that going as we go through. The last one is how much to lose per week. Now, as a rough rule of thumb, it wants to be 1% of the scale weight per week. But we can pretty much say for sure, it's going to be about 1 kilogram per week. Even if you're 75 kilograms in the beginning, especially, it still wants to be 1 kilo per week. Now, just to give you some numbers, if you start out at 90 kilos and 30% body fat, you can lose 2 kilos in the first week. Don't think anything of it. And to tell you the truth, if you're that level of body fat, you can lose 2 kilo a week for a good amount of weeks, and I wouldn't be concerned. But if you're going from 20 to 10, 1 kilo a week is perfect. Any more than that, if it's not the first week, you probably could do with a bit more food. You don't need to lose it any quicker than that, because if you can lose at that rate of gain, you're going to allow yourself the best chance of keeping or building the tissue, that which is the most important thing. You can go dirtily low calorie, but you run the risk of losing tissue, and that's not what this is about. This is about body recomposition. This is about losing body fat, building tissue, losing body fat, building tissue, losing body fat, keeping tissue, losing body fat, building tissue, losing body fat, keeping tissue, losing body fat, building tissue. Fucking shredded. Yeah, so that's what this is about. It's about losing body fat and keeping or building tissue. That's what this is about here. So that's why we don't want to just rush the rate of gain. So we're now in September, which whatever your plans are for the next time you need to be shredded, you know you've got long enough to plan ahead for this. And make sure you lose at the right rate of gain. So that's my 3 principles for a successful body recomposition. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, subscribe to the channel, motherfucker. And if you want to work with me, then book a call and we'll take it from there. I'll see you tomorrow.